Hello, hello, and welcome to the Elevated Frequency Podcast. My name is Shannon Morse. I'm here with my co-founder, Lisa Kirby, and one of our very lovely coaches, Anastasia Sauvage. And today we get to explore what it's like to be in this coaching space, and especially as it relates to nutrition, movement, and the very special flavor that Anastasia brings, which is some of the Enneagram knowledge and just through her past experience in general. So welcome everyone, those of you who are watching, and Lisa and Anastasia, great to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for having us, team.
So we decided ahead of time that we were going to have Lisa start off with some of the questions that we'll kind of go through and discover more about Anastasia, the type of work that she does inside of the Green Door, and also the people that we really feel lit up to work with, especially the ones that she does. So Lisa, take it away.
Yeah, I think just starting off and introducing yourself, telling us where you're from, where you are now, Anastasia, just so everyone can have a little better sense of context of who you are.
Awesome. Yes. Hello, everybody. So I am from the San Francisco Bay Area, and I currently live in Texas. And I have been into health for a very long time, the majority of my life. I was a professional aerialist for 10 years, and I have since transitioned out of that. But that was definitely a full mind-body mesh learning experience.
Amazing. And how would you describe, so just tell us a little more context about your past like interest and participation in kind of the health and fitness industry, and what your relationship to like food and movement and exercise was before kind of learning about nutrition science eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So maybe I'll start with my before. And wow. So I grew up eating whole foods mostly, which was awesome. And then I definitely rebelled against some of that and swung to the other side and experienced all of the other things. And so as I started to get more serious about movement and getting into aerial, I was really interested in fueling myself for that, because I knew that with all of the output that I had in my training, my body just wasn't adapting in the way that I thought it should. So I mean, I came from the place of overtraining, undereating, thinking that undereating was the fastest way to get to the gains and the goals. Little did I know, lots of caffeine and pedal to the metal, like more is more. Train more, do as many things as I possibly can in a day, and then do even more the next day, and never rest, because rest was time that I could potentially be doing more. So that was then.
And did you see like what kind of toll did that take on your body? Because I think what's interesting is, some people respond to that kind of overdoing it with weight gain and inflammation, and other people can lose weight, lose muscle. So there's different kind of responses. What kind of came up for you from that experience?
Mm-hmm. I noticed that emotionally and mentally it was a lot. Like I found that my moods were pretty unstable, and I felt a lot of pressure, and I felt a lot of anxiety, and so then I also noticed that my body would hold this puffiness, and it wouldn't really fully let go. And I didn't really feel like I was building the muscle that I maybe could have been. But yeah, and it just felt like a cycle. Like the more I would think that I would gain, I'd catch a cold all of a sudden, and then I couldn't train for a week.
Just resonates so much. And especially for Shannon and I, kind of coming from that similar background of focusing first on exercise and, maybe overdoing it, and missing that nutrition piece. And so did you two, was Shannon, you were the first coach for Anastasia as well? Like, how did you two connect?
Anastasia, how did we connect?
Let's see. Once upon a time. Wow. That was like, I think that we started working together in terms of nutrition in 2017 officially, but we had met several years before that. But
Yes.
yeah, Shannon was the first person that I worked with that focused on macros and body composition, because I had worked with, say, other personal trainers, circus coaches, people that gave me guidelines, lots of fad diets, lots of eating styles that might be better for the male body and not necessarily the female body. And yeah, I learned about consuming that I was consuming way too much fat and definitely not enough protein and not in the best intervals. So that was really eye-opening for me.
And it's such a cool experience, or just for those of you who are listening, if you're listening to what Anastasia is saying about fatigue and getting sick more regularly and having like these emotional swings, that's really like the indicators of overtraining. And what's really cool, and one of the reasons why we wanted to do these kinds of interview style sessions with our coaches, is because each coach has this unique background of personal experience and things that they've gone through, like the tried and true life experiences of basically doing the up and down thing, where they've realized through their own practice, whatever that specific practice might be, that there's an imbalance that's available and it might feel like this. And then there's a balance over here on the other side that might feel like this. And as I'm listening to you share about this, Anastasia, I'm just thinking about all of the athletes and aerialists who may be like, oh, is that what that feeling is? Like, oh, huh, okay. So when you started to get a better understanding and sense of what the appropriate amount of like protein and vegetables and carbohydrates and fat balance was for you, what are the things that you noticed as your body moved more into balance? Like, what did that feel like?
Stability and energy throughout the day. So I wouldn't have the afternoon crash, which felt a little bit different with that high physical output. It would just like my body would hit a wall and I felt like I needed a nap, and it was almost non-negotiable. And I just felt like a zombie. So once I moved out of that, I felt more of a sense of more like a connection to my body, if that makes sense. Like I just feel more in it, more aware, and also my recovery was so much better, and allowing myself the time to actually take time to recover and then feel the benefits from that. I think one of the illusions and the myths that I got stuck in was I didn't really feel the benefits of rest because I was so focused on other things until I really allowed myself to feel it. And then I understood, oh, okay, this is what recovered feels like. And that is what I want because I'm so much stronger when I go back into the gym and the training studio.
Yeah. I was a question that was coming to mind as you were talking about that was, what did you notice in your like level of performance with aerial when you were like on stage and you were moving into that, like from the time that you kind of had a better understanding of the nutrition and how to basically support your, fuel your training in different ways? Did you notice a difference in just like how or what level you could perform at?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was, and I would actually relate this to the nervous system and the way that I would feel before and after show days, because I noticed if my intake was more balanced, if I had really prepared ahead of time to set myself up with hydration, the proper rest, the proper fuel before the show, I wouldn't feel as jittery beforehand. The nerves wouldn't be as intense. And when I would come off of the stage, I wouldn't feel like I needed to collapse. And then if I have shows and back-to-back days and waking up the next morning and still feeling like I got hit by a train, was really hard to get back into, like, okay, I have to go do that again. Wow. But if I really set that up and made sure that I planned, then it was way, way easier, way better.
Eek. So good.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because I think for so many women, we are like all of the kind of fads and trends, like to your point, Anastasia, that are really geared, a lot of them towards men. They've been studied in men. Men tend to work better with more extreme approaches. And it's such a disservice to women who really do better in a fed and steady fueled state. And I just think about, all of the women out there who are picking up like new training modalities, whether they're doing something sports specific, like an aerialist or strength training, or going to these hardcore like HIIT classes, and they're all showing up, skipping carbs, under eating protein, under eating period, thinking, oh, if I restrict, like this will be better. What was it like for you to shift your mindset into, I think one thing we practice a lot at the Green Door Life is like shifting your mindset to, you are an athlete. Like if you are training at all with intention, like you're an athlete, and thinking about fueling, did that change things for you in terms of how to support your sport?
It really did. Yeah, because I came from the place where I thought, oh, well, if I don't eat before training, that means that I'm technically burning more calories, right? Okay. And then if I maybe don't eat a couple of hours after training, then that's a plus. No. And so then understanding, I think one of the biggest aha moments was understanding that I can consume a pretty exact amount of food in the right ranges that are going to sustain me through the whole process, and that I'm not going to put any of that in storage, and I actually am going to preserve lean muscle mass if I have this other energy to use. And that's better in the long run, because I was very much focused on like kind of like all or nothing, now or never, and like instant results is what I really thought was possible.
Right.
Which is hilarious. And so, yeah, when I shifted that mindset into, it's not really about like instant gratification. It's about this like long process of the longevity of this art form that I'm working with, the longevity of my body. And it's really just like layers upon layers that I'm building. And it's really like a plant, I can't just dump water on the plant and expect it to grow faster. It actually kills the plant. So
it's really, I really hope that we have athletes in whatever capacity listening to this, because I think just being able to identify, and one of the things that we love to circle back to all the time when we're working with clients is helping individuals and ourselves to identify what we're actually feeling, and to not just gloss over it like, oh, I guess I'm just tired today. I wonder what that means. Or I guess I'm like tired all week. Or I guess I've been tired for a month. Huh, now that you say that. And instead of us just kind of glossing over and being like, well, maybe that's quote unquote normal, or maybe it's my age, or maybe it's my hormones, we can actually just cultivate this behavior pattern and use our muscle of awareness to basically go, well, what might it be? Like what might be out of balance? And then move into that critical thinking, which happens when we have that baseline understanding of the levers that we have to work with. And I think what's so cool about your experience, Anastasia, and then what you bring with like the awareness of the Enneagram and these sorts of things, is that you have this really cool baseline from personal experience as an elite athlete, and really pushing your body to do some pretty incredible things. And even like if you guys listening have never like done this kind of thing on stage, like being on stage and being an athlete as opposed to just like doing the hard thing in the gym is a completely other level. It's like you have the thing that your body's doing, and then you actually have to pretend like it's not hard, and just like have a smile on the whole time and this whole other factor. But then having that experience, and then can you share a little bit about like how your transition has essentially morphed from the aerialist practice and understanding how to fuel your body with that, and then moving into coaching and how you're like weaving the Enneagram into just your own life and like when you work with specific clients?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Big yes to many things happening at once on stage and physically. And yeah, which actually was a huge transition into this space because I was really fascinated, and I've lifelong fascinated with human psychology, but really the why underneath it all. Like, we can have all the tools, we can know what to do, we can have the directions. But if we're really not bought in on a deep, deep level, and if there's some kind of pattern that's stuck and some kind of deep belief underneath there, something that just needs some attention, like an unmet need, it just unlocks everything. And I find that so many of the experiences that I had were maybe symptomatic in like binge eating because I was exhausted, and and sure, physiologically that makes sense to the level of output that I had, but then also compounding that with the stress on my nervous system, and even some of the stress that I held in the performing world, and even just from childhood, like it goes back, and we can't really ignore that.
100%. And you've cultivated that muscle of awareness over time so that when you're in all of those circumstances, either now or in the past or in the future, you'll be able to use that and kind of go, oh, there's something there that's part of that mindset, part of the psychological aspect of really looking at why we do the thing, or why we create the meaning around why we do the thing, which is what we were talking about in our group session this morning, which is so perfect. So can you share a little bit more about like how, like more specifically, how that path and Enneagram was kind of in there? Because I want to make sure we touch on that because it's such a cool part of what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and for those that don't know about the Enneagram, it's really just a personality typing system. And so there are many different schools of thought with it in all different spectrums. But the one that I really appreciate is more about developmental psychology and the patterns of our nervous system. And so, and also how we learn. So we receive stimulus from from the social world, from our immediate reality, and then we start moving in the path of least resistance. And what that looks like is taking on different characteristics that essentially help us survive. And so with the Enneagram, there are 9 different types. And if you don't know about it, I'd recommend a Google search. But they're all different strategies of human relating. And there's so much that you can really get from looking at these patterns. And it's not deterministic. It's not putting you in a box. It's really, I see all of these typologies as being more of discussion prompts. Is this true for you? Do you notice that you have this pattern sometimes or not? When, the Enneagram focuses on stress and growth. What do you do when you're in a stress state? What's your unconscious state? What's that nervous system pathway that was paved that became unconscious in terms of behavior that you just enact and maybe don't even know about? So it creates so many more deep layers of inquiry to be able to uncover some of these deeper mechanisms that maybe show up as stress eating or falling into old patterns. I know I want to change, but it's so hard and I can't seem to do it and I don't know why. And going into shame spirals about, man, I must just be screwed up then if I can't change. And it's really so much deeper than that. And there is possibility and potential to understand that. And that's what I love the most about coaching and diving into, is like, we can have all these tools and they're incredible and they themselves are really you can find a lot of solution in them, but when it comes to using them then we start running into ourselves, and our different parts of self.
And that's when you need Coach Anastasia to be in your corner and kind of hold up that mirror and help you along the way. Really. I'm just thinking this whole time, I'm like, we don't really do small talk around here. We like to go pretty deep, and there's nothing really surface level happening here, which is so cool because it's one of the hardest things to convey about what we do, and especially for the type of clients that you're drawn to and that are drawn to you, Anastasia, are really people who they're looking for that deeper support. It's not just like, oh, tell me what to eat, goodbye. You're really looking to unpack, what blocks might be in place. And I think one of the coolest things that I discovered when working with Shannon, and what we see with so many of our clients, is like, the block that you find with food or exercise or whatever it is, it shows up so many other places. So it's like just this little like one area that wakes you up, and then you have this potential to see patterns and behaviors all in different areas of your life. And you really have that opportunity, if you want to level up, become someone, a better version of yourself. So it's not a small change. It's pretty incredible what you get to support people with. How, Anastasia, in becoming a Green Door Life coach, how has that changed you personally in walking so many people now through these transformational experiences?
Mm-hmm. I love it. And personally, so walking with people through these experiences that they have is walking a path and almost experiencing it vicariously. And so I also have the opportunity to ask myself, like, how would I act in this situation? How would I handle these things? I get to almost put on all these different hats. And I think that's a really essential part of the coaching process, is the empathetic piece, and really, of course, maintaining proper boundaries, but feeling into the experience of what your client is actually going through. And so with that, it's just really built out my capacity, and continues to build out, and probably will until I die, of all of these possibilities. And also another thing about coaching that I'm sure you two could probably relate, and coaches out there, is mirroring back experiences that either you're going through in real time, that the clients also happen to be experiencing, also older versions of ourselves maybe, and just almost like we're talking to where we were maybe 5 years ago. And it's just so full circle. It's really incredible.
Yeah, because I think the really amazing thing about coaching is that once you go through it enough times, you realize that you've walked the path, and that's the only reason that you can coach it. Right. So we have to have gone through the experience first in order to be able to go, hey, remember, you're going to start here, and then you're going to think you're done, but you're not. And I only know because I've been there. So I think that's the really cool thing. And as you're saying, what's full circle, and for you as a coach, it's like, or for all of us, our person that we're going to be able to best serve is going to continue to evolve as we evolve. So that part becomes so freaking cool. So Anastasia, on that, I'm going to like loop this in, but when you think about that, and like the coaching that you really, really thrive in being right now? Like the coaching container that you're like, I love being this type of coach. How would you describe that so that if people are listening to this and they're like, is that the coach for me? That they can kind of like ping on themselves and go like, yep, that's it. So what would be, what is that for you right now in your coaching?
Ooh. I love working with people that want to go really deep and understand the why behind and underneath so many of the behaviors on the top and on the surface rather. And of course enjoying the practical application or not, that's up to you. Willingness, I think, is the word that actually comes to mind, is curiosity, willingness, interest in maybe experimenting with also trying on different hats moving through this process. But I just love diving deep into self-inquiry and finding solution in those places.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And to be even more specific, is there a specific demographic that you feel like whether it's men, women, athletes, executives, like where do you feel most drawn to support people? If there is even a bucket like that, 'cause sometimes there's not. Sometimes it's just, I really want someone who can go deep. But for you right now, where do you feel that you're really in alignment with supporting certain people in their experiences?
Mm-hmm. I, of course, can support aerialists in a very niche sense. But another branch from that I've discovered recently is people that maybe were big movers, maybe were more intense athletes at one time. And then now they're finding themselves in a more sedentary job, and then negotiating what does movement mean now in this different space, and how do I make this work?
I love that. That's very cool because that's like a transition that I think so many people go through, especially when they move through, different times of life, or they move to a different city or state, and it, like, if it's colder or whatever it might be, and we're in this new environment, and we're going, wait, why am I not feeling the same way that I did in this other environment? And it's just because it's changed. And sometimes I think the general population doesn't even realize that having someone who can reflect back from the outside where new possibilities or options might be available to them in the new location or their new life environment or identity might be available. So I think that's really a cool place to like come in and support people through transition like that. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're going to see a lot more of that, just astrologically speaking. So it's been predicted that we're going to see a lot more of that transient movement, people changing jobs, changing locations, and it's going to be so important. It's impossible to convey in words the amazing benefit and advantage of having this like baseline nutrition and movement education to take with you wherever. So like Anastasia, just with your recent move from California to Texas, did anything change for you, in terms of like your little routines, or how did that pan out?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that's another thing that I hold really dear in my life, is being able to take my routine and bring it anywhere I go. And be that just going for a weekend somewhere, going to a completely new place, going to a different country, is what are these really core things that I feel really healthy and happy and like the non-negotiables of my life. So really because I know what these are for me, and that's having a gym close by, walking distance, ideally. The last place I lived, it was a block and a half away. Now my gym is downstairs, so that's great. And having the healthy food or just the whole foods that I want. And so when I moved here from California to Texas, I knew exactly what to look for, and I mapped it all out, and I have my routine set up, and it's fantastic.
I love it. I can relate.
Yeah.
I heard you travel with your milk frother, and I was like, oh, I feel so seen because
I do. I have two. I have one at the house, and then I have the travel.
yes, I have strategically placed milk frothers at like my mom's house. Like I bought one that's going to stay there. And yes, because it's like when you have your non-negotiable set and you discover what those are, and then, you can adapt that and take them anywhere. I love that. So
Totally.
great.
Yes. Yeah, my partner and I have a small travel suitcase set aside for supplements, food, the frother. We just check it. Like it goes. Oh, the frying pan that we want to use, that's ceramic, like it goes the full nine.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And what a testament also to being able to share that with your
Mhm.
partner too. When you have that shared mission, and then you can collaborate on the things that you put in your check on.
Totally. We have
I
the
like that a
shared
lot.
note, and then like the checklist.
It's going to be this whole other podcast on like life hacks of staying healthy, mobile, and active with your partner and family.
Mhm.
I love it. So I think the last thing, maybe, unless Lisa, you have another question that is on your mind, I think the last thing that I kind of would love for people to just hear, maybe a reflection of, is kind of your idea right now of both, like, and this is a bigger question, but both like what you see in the health industry, like the holistic health industry right now, like what we see in media and what you see the trends are, and where you feel that this kind of coaching comes in to the system a little bit, like what we're experiencing right now, being bombarded with all of these different ideas and thoughts and things, and then where this coaching practice comes into play for people who are looking to improve their health or performance in any way.
Mm-hmm. Great question. Yes. So in terms of the greater industry, I mean, social media just in the past 10 years the past 5 years has been insane.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it helps in some ways. It creates this illusion of empowerment because people are like, well, I can just Google it, and I can go on Instagram, and I'll follow this person. And, and there's a huge DIY element to the fitness industry right now. And also, just it's really more so missing the actual, like what it takes, let's say. So, and I think that's what we run into so much here is so many people come in and they say, well, I've been following this person and I've been doing this diet and that worked for them. But it's really missing all of the customized pieces to one's unique body, which it's how could somebody identify themselves amidst all of this information? And especially if one isn't doing the deeper research and understanding who is actually putting on these studies, who are these studies using in terms of bodies, and who's funding them. And so there's so much that it's like skimming the surface. I think so many people are skimming the surface. So with this, it really allows us to look at each person and have a conversation with them, and it's not telling them what they need per se, as much as discussing with them how understanding their history, the way that they feel. It's not putting somebody in a box by any means. There are really beautiful structured guidelines that are based in science that make sense. And there's a lot of autonomy for every single person's unique life.
So well said. Mic drop.
Nailed it. So good.
Yeah. And I think this is one of the things that I feel is sometimes very hard to convey, because I even had a call yesterday with an investment firm for a side project that we're working with. And I started to share with him what it is that we offer. And he's like, I've never known a company to integrate all of that in one program. So the mindset, the nutrition, the movement in such a way where it is structured, but allows for autonomy, and that you have one individual plus a community to really guide your journey. And I loved how you said this, Anastasia. You said, when we walk with someone, not necessarily when we're leading them, but when we're like literally standing next to them going like, well, what did you think about that? Jim, did you like that? I don't know if I would like it. I haven't tried it, but I'll try it if you want me to try it, like I'll see what I like too. And so I think that's a really cool thing. So it's not just someone who's like, you're sending an email to, and they look at your numbers and then they give you new numbers. Because I think that is one way of doing macronutrient coaching. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just one type of experience. And so what's really cool about this, and as we're talking to you, it's just getting me that much more excited, because what you bring to your coaching is that depth, that self-reflection, and then standing there next to someone going like, hey, let's look at this together. Like, isn't that cool? We get to understand the deeper why behind it. And I know that you're into that because that's why you want to work with me. And so being able to like have that clarity and resonance is super, super rad. Super rad. I am from the 90s.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not from the 90s. I was born around that time. I'm not from then.
And we all know where you're from. It may not be
Next time I'm just going to have my little antennae.
We need our avatar filters next time.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Lisa, is there anything else that you want to sign off with?
Oh gosh, I think you nailed it, Anastasia. I mean, you touched on so many things and it's super clear. I mean, I get a really picture now of like, hey, if you're not interested in change and you don't want to do any self-reflection, please do not contact Anastasia. It's really like, yeah, it's like if you're ready and you're ready for this, the inner work that's underneath all behavior, then it's very clear, where to go. So I'm just so excited. The final step would just be, how does someone reach out to you and get to work with you? If you want to share some of your social media handles or email, website, whatever you prefer.
Yeah. So my Instagram is my name, Anastasia.Sauvage. My website is anastasiasauvage.com. And you can also find me in the Green Door world, but more directly, if you want to speak to me there, I will definitely answer. Go straight to all my channels.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you so much, Anastasia, for joining us. This was awesome. Sharing your wisdom and your experience. And of course, thanks for co-hosting, Lise. And thank you for everyone who was able to watch now or in the future. Again, if you have any questions or comments, you can always go to thegreendoorlife.com, or wherever you're watching this live, drop a message in the comment section and we will answer you there. So we hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we will see you next time.